The late summer evening lay over Maplewood Estates like a soft gold blanket. The rows of pristine two-story homes glowed in the setting sun, their driveways spotless, their lawns clipped to HOA-approved perfection. A faint breeze stirred the trimmed hedges, carrying the scent of jasmine from the corner gardens. It was the kind of neighborhood where nothing out of place was tolerated and where some people thought that out of place meant out of place for you. Alana Brooks wasn't thinking about any of that. She was finishing the last leg of her run, sweat cooling on her skin as her shoes pounded lightly against the pavement. Black running shorts, a gray athletic hoodie, earbuds tucked in. Her father's house was just 3 blocks away. She slowed slightly, scanning the familiar layout as the kids' bikes parked neatly in a driveway, a sprinkler lazily rotating in an empty yard. Everything was exactly as she remembered from her childhood visits, except the neighborhood had grown a broken bar quieter. Too quiet. The sound reached her before the sight did, a heavy thud of boots on pavement, followed by a sharp voice cutting through the evening. "Hey, stop right there." Alana turned her head, frowning. A stocky man in a dark blue HOA security polo shirt was hustling toward her from the direction of the clubhouse. He had the kind of face that looked perpetually angry, his jaw clenched tight, eyes narrow beneath the brim of his cap. His right hand was resting on a holstered pistol at his hip. Her pace slowed to a stop, confusion crossing her face. She pulled one earbud free. "Is there a problem?" "You bet there is," the man said, closing the distance fast. "You don't belong here." She blinked, letting the words hang for a beat. "Excuse me? I asked you to stop. This is a private community. Residents only." Alana gave a short, dry laugh. "And I'm heading to my father's house." The man's eyes flicked down her athletic ear, then back up with a sneer. "Funny, I've been working here for 4 years and I've never seen you before. Maybe because I don't live here full-time," Alana said evenly, crossing her arms. "But I grew up here. My dad still does." Number 217. Lagarde Carl. According to the stitched name tag on his shirt, a step closer. Too close. His hand was no longer resting on the pistol. It was gripping it. "I'm going to need to see some ID," he said. His voice had shifted from suspicious to sharp, the kind of tone that made it clear he'd already decided she was guilty of something. Alana kept her posture relaxed, though her pulse had ticked up. "My ID's in my pocket," she said slowly, making sure every word was deliberate. "I'll reach for it, but you need to take your hand off that weapon first." Carl didn't move his hand. "Go ahead," he said. Her eyes narrowed. "You sure you want me to do that?" Carl's expression hardened. "You don't give the orders here." And then, just like that, the moment tipped over the edge as his pistol came out of the holster in one swift, practiced movement. The cold black barrel now pointed squarely at her chest. The world seemed to go still. A family across the street was unloading groceries from their SUV. The mother froze, clutching her child's shoulder as she spotted the weapon. Somewhere far off, a dog barked, then went quiet. The sprinkler kept spinning, oblivious. Alana didn't flinch. She had stared down barrels before in alleys, in hostage standoffs, in raid houses that smelled of gunpowder and fear. But it was different here. Different because this was her father's neighborhood, a place she should have been safe. "Sir," she said quietly, her voice calm but edged with steel, "you're making a mistake." Carl's grip tightened. His eyes didn't blink. "You're the one making a mistake. Lady, you don't get to stroll into this community without clearing it with me." She tilted her head, studying him with attention in his forearm. The way his breathing was too fast, the faint flicker of uncertainty behind his bravado. He thought he was in control. He had no idea. Alana's right hand hung loosely at her side, inches from her pocket. Her left remained raised slightly, palm out, not threatening. She'd escalated men like him before, but she'd also seen what happened when they didn't back down. Carl took another step forward, the muzzle now less than a foot from her. "You've got 5 seconds to produce ID," he said, "or I'm calling this as trespassing and resisting." Alana's eyes stayed locked on his. Her voice, when it came, was calm, almost too calm. "Go ahead and call it then." The pistol's barrel looked impossibly black in the fading sunlight, a void against the soft amber glow that still lingered over Maplewood Estates. Alana stood perfectly still, her breathing steady. She had been here before, not here in this neighborhood, but here in this moment. The dangerous stillness before a man with too much fear and too little control made a decision he couldn't take back. Her voice was low, even. "You really want to point that at me?" Carl snorted, masking the faint tremor in his hand with bravado. "You don't tell me what I want. I know exactly what I'm doing." "You're trespassing." "I already told you," she said, her eyes never leaving his. "My father owns a home here. I live here when I'm not working." Carl shifted his stance. The gun stayed locked in place, but his gaze flicked, just for a second, to her hands. "Working where?" "That's none of your business." "Then you can tell it to the police." Carl snapped. "Hands where I can see them." Alana slowly lifted both hands to shoulder height, palms outward. It was the move of someone complying, at least on the surface. But every part of her mind was calculating. The distance between them, about 3 feet. The position of his right elbow, slightly bent, which meant his aim would be shaky if she moved suddenly. The way his feet were too close together. He had no proper shooting stance. She disarmed men faster than this before. In less than a second, she could sidestep, pivot, and have his weapon stripped away. But that wasn't the play, not yet. She didn't want to win the moment, she wanted to own it. "My ID is in my left pocket," she said slowly. "I'm telling you again before I move. I don't want any misunderstandings. You're not reaching for anything until I say so," Carl barked. Alana tilted her head. "So what's your plan here, Carl?" she asked, her voice almost conversational. "Keep me at gunpoint in the middle of a neighborhood? Hope the neighbors see you pointing a firearm at an unarmed woman and think you're the hero?" Carl's face darkened. "Don't try to play smart. You're the suspicious one here." Suspicious. The word carried weight, and not the kind that came from logic. It was heavy with assumption. His assumption. Alana's jaw tightened, but she kept her tone measured. "My father moved here 22 years ago. He's hosted the whole Christmas party more than once. Funny how you never stop to think I might belong." Carl gave a humorless laugh. "I've been on this job long enough to know who belongs, and you don't." Something in Alana's eyes hardened, just for a fraction of a second, enough to make Carl's fingers twitch on the grip. She saw it, filed it away. "Fear made people unpredictable. You're escalating a situation that doesn't need to be escalated," she said evenly. "If you put the gun away, I'll show you my ID. You can call my father, and we can end this." Carl took another step forward, the muzzle closing the gap to barely a foot from her sternum. His shadow fell across her face. "You're going to do what I say, or this ends badly for you." "Ends badly for me?" she repeated softly. Carl blinked, something in her tone battling him, but he straightened his shoulders, doubling down. "That's right, I'm in charge here, not you." Alana let the silence stretch, letting him feel in control for just a moment longer. Her breathing stayed calm, but her eyes sharpened at the kind of look that made seasoned criminals rethink their life choices. She could see the sweat beginning to bead at his temple. He wasn't used to people staying calm under his intimidation. He expected fear. He thrived on it. Instead, he was getting something he didn't recognize: a control without force, confidence without shouting. Her lips curved into the faintest smile. "Carl," she said quietly, "you have no idea what you're doing." Carl's brows knit together. "You don't get HOA. I'm giving you one last chance," she interrupted, her voice still soft but now carrying an unmistakable edge. "Holster the weapon now." The way she said it made Carl's heart trip for half a beat. There was no panic in it, no pleading. It was a command. He hesitated, and in that hesitation, Alana decided this was over on her terms. Carl's hesitation stretched for 3 long seconds. His jaw worked, his eyes flickering between her steady gaze and the badge-shaped bulge in her hoodie pocket. Alana didn't move. She didn't need to. She already owned the air between them. "You've got a choice to make," she said, voice low and deliberate. "You can end this right now by putting that weapon away, or you can keep digging yourself into a hole you won't climb out of." Carl's chin jutted forward, defiance mixing with unease. "You think I'm scared of you?" "No," Alana replied, her tone almost conversational. "I think you have no idea who you're dealing with." She let the silence hang just long enough for him to shift uncomfortably. Then, with slow, measured precision, she slid her left hand into her hoodie pocket. "Stop right there!" Exclamation mark. Carl barked, his gun jerking slightly. Alana froze her hand mid-motion, her eyes narrowing. "Carl, I told you what's in my pocket. It's not a weapon. It's my credentials. You can show me after you put your hands behind your head," he snapped. Her lips curved into a faint, humorless smile. "That's not how this is going to go." Before he could respond, she pulled the object from her pocket in one fluid motion, not fast enough to spook him into pulling the trigger, but with just enough authority to make it clear she wasn't afraid. The gold FBI badge caught the last of the dying sunlight, throwing a sharp gleam into Carl's eyes. Underneath it, in bold block letters, the ID card read, "Brooks, Alana A. Special Operations Commander, Tactical Response Unit." Carl's mouth actually fell open for half a second before he snapped it shut. His voice came out quieter now, but still strained. "What a broken bar. What is this?" "This," Alana said, stepping forward just enough to close the gap, "is the part where you realize you just aimed a loaded firearm at a federal agent in my own father's neighborhood." Carl's breathing quickened. "You cool Bia. I told you who I was," she cut in sharply. "You didn't listen. Instead, you profiled me, escalated without cause, and threatened deadly force against someone who's not only a resident but also legally authorized to carry more firepower than you've ever seen in your life." Carl instinctively took a step back, his gun lowering slightly but still in his hand. "Look, yeah, broken bar. I didn't know. That's the point," Alana said, her voice now carrying the unmistakable authority of someone who had commanded armed men in combat zones. "You didn't know, and instead of gathering facts, you pulled your weapon because you thought intimidation would get you answers." Carl's throat bobbed as he swallowed. The confidence he'd worn like armor was slipping fast. "Yeah, look, I was just doing my job." "Your job," she interrupted again, "is to observe, report, and keep the peace, not to play cowboy with residents' lives. And if I were anyone else, say if I didn't know how to read your stance, your trigger discipline, and the way you telegraphed every move before you make it, I might be lying on the pavement right now." The words hit him harder than he wanted to admit. His grip loosened on the pistol. "Holster the weapon, Carl," she said, not as a request but as an order. Something in her tone bypassed his ego and went straight to muscle memory. Without consciously deciding, he slid the gun back into his holster. His hands twitched at his sides, unsure what to do next. Alana held up her badge. close enough for him to read the fine print. Commander Alana Brooks, FBI Tactical Response Unit. I lead men who clear hostage situations with assault teams. I've been in firefights where the first 30 seconds decide who lives and who dies. And you? You just pointed a gun at me because I didn't look like your idea of someone who lives here. Carl opened his mouth, but no sound came out. That's what you did wrong, she continued, stepping past him now. And when this is over, you and I are going to have a very long conversation about consequences. But for now, a broken bar. She stopped and looked over her shoulder. Stay right where you are. Backup's already on the way. Carl's eyes darted around. Backup. Alana gave him a look that made his stomach drop. You think the FBI doesn't keep tabs on their commanders? I've been on comm since you drew your weapon. And with that, she walked away, her badge still in hand, leaving Carl frozen in place, not because of the gun he no longer held, but because of the realization of just how badly he'd miscalculated. The quiet of Maplewood Estates didn't last. First came the distant wail of sirens, faint at first, then growing sharper, closer. A ripple of unease moved through the street. Curtains twitched, front doors cracked open, and heads peeked out. By the time the first black SUV rounded the corner, Carl was standing like a man who wasn't sure whether to run, salute, or disappear entirely. The SUV rolled to a stop with the kind of smooth precision that spoke of drivers trained to hit exact marks. Before the engine was even fully off, two tactical agents stepped out, both clad in dark uniforms marked with FBI in bold yellow lettering. They didn't shout. They didn't rush. They simply moved with quiet authority, scanning their surroundings as if the entire neighborhood were a potential threat zone. Behind them, a second SUV pulled up, then a third. The flashing blue and reds from local PD lit up the cul-de-sac in pulsing color. In less than a minute, the peaceful evening glow had been replaced by the thrum of boots, radios, and the low murmur of agents coordinating. Carl's voice cracked when he finally spoke. You a broken bar? Is all this for a broken bar? Yes, Alana said without looking at him, already walking toward her father's porch. Her father, James Brooks, stood waiting, hands braced on the railing. He'd seen the tail end of the confrontation from his front window. His expression carried a mix of pride and barely contained anger, not at her, but at what had been done to her in his own neighborhood. Dad, she said softly, stepping onto the porch. Alana. His voice was warm, but there was an undercurrent of steel. He gave her a quick once-over, making sure she wasn't injured. I saw the gun. I saw him pull it. She nodded once. He made a choice. Behind them, two FBI agents approached Carl, flanking him like a shadow with a mind of its own. Carl Simmons? One of them masked, tone neutral but loaded with authority. Yeah, Carl said, his voice wavering. Yeah, broken bar. I think there's been a misunderstanding. The other agent cut him off. You're observed aiming a firearm at a federal agent without lawful cause. You are hereby disarmed pending investigation. Carl's face went pale as the first agent stepped forward, unfastened his holster, and removed the pistol. The weapon disappeared into an evidence bag with smooth efficiency. Hey, Carl tried, but his words fizzled when he caught Alana's gaze from the porch. She didn't say a word, but the weight in her eyes said everything. James stepped closer to his daughter. You okay? I'm fine, she said, but he's not going to be. And indeed, Carl's world was unraveling. One officer from the local PD began asking questions, while another took down his statement. Carl's usual confidence and the self-assuredness of a man used to lording authority over people was gone. Now he was just another subject in a controlled scene. Neighbors had gathered in quiet clusters along the sidewalk, some holding phones discreetly at their sides. Word was already spreading, carried in quick whispers. HOA security pulled a gun on Commander Brooks. Alana finally descended the porch steps, moving toward Carl. The agents gave her space, but their eyes never left the scene. She stopped 2 feet in front of him. Here's what's going to happen, she said, her voice calm and deliberate. You're going to give a full statement to the local PD. The whole board will be informed of your actions, and the FBI will submit the formal incident report on the misuse of a firearm against a federal officer. That's the minimum. Carl's mouth opened, but nothing came out. You thought you were the authority here, she continued, but authority without discipline is just a liability. And today, Carl, you prove you're a dangerous one. One of the agents stepped forward. Commander, do you need us to take him in tonight? Alana shook her head slowly, her eyes never leaving Carl's. Number, not yet. Let's see how the HOA handles it. But make sure this goes in his record. They flag it. Permanent. Carl's breath came in short bursts. You're broken bar. You're really going to ruin my career over this? Alana tilted her head. You pulled a loaded gun on me because you didn't recognize my face in a neighborhood I grew up in. You tell me, Carly, who ruined her career? Silence settled over them, thick and heavy. She turned back to her father, who gave her a small, knowing smile. Next home meeting, James murmured. Might be interesting. Oh, it's going to be very interesting, she replied, stepping up beside him as the agents wrapped up their work. The SUVs pulled away one by one, leaving Carl standing in the glow of the police cruiser's lights, stripped of his weapon and whatever remained of his neighborhood authority. And just like that, Maplewood Estates went quiet again. But it wasn't the same quiet as before. It was the kind that comes after a storm.